Welcome to the morning feed. Today we're going to go over an ongoing matter that has been months in the making. The indictment against Sean Combs has officially dropped with an arrest in Manhattan. But let's go back to 1997 really quick. Sean Combs started out as Puff Daddy, then he rebranded himself to Diddy, among other things like Love. Many of those rebrands were not successful, and he's always pretty much been known as Diddy or Puff Daddy. When he started out as Puff Daddy with the No Way Out album, he started out with the first song on that soundtrack, the intro to the soundtrack, No Way Out. And he started off the first 3 lines like this. He said, "Damn, I never would have thought that it would have been like this. Life is crazy." So fast forward to 2024, and actually the problems for him really started to take um, a sharp turn, I should say, as far as his accountability and um, his ability to be tried in this case in 2023 when Cassie Ventura filed her lawsuit against Sean Combs, alleging some very, very serious accusations against Combs, very disturbing, violent behavior towards her, and there was some trafficking verbiage in there. It sound there was a lot of verbiage in there about what he was doing, not only to her, but that would kind of give some insight to what other people have possibly experienced with him. She had alleged that he tried to blow up her car. He was violent towards her and assaulted her. These were very bombshell allegations. Those allegations were dropped on November the 16th, 2023. November the 17th, 2023, the following day, that lawsuit was settled. Now, a lot of people commented on what might happen going forward because when you settle a lawsuit one day later, that is that disturbing, that bombshell, and for that much money, you're going to really open the door to a lot. And typically, people would expect even lawsuits that maybe don't have merit to move forward to be at least filed and tried. Um, and that's what a lot of the lawsuits after Cassie's were accused of doing. Oh, they're just trying to jump on the bandwagon. However, behind the scenes, Sean Combs allegedly was continuing with his typical behavior that he is accused of now officially and was trying to make offers behind the scenes to get these lawsuits dropped. That was unsuccessful. They moved forward to the point that the $100 million lawsuit that was filed against him was then defaulted because the person did not take his, behind closed doors offer to drop the lawsuit for $24 million. They didn't bite on that. So the lawsuit went forward, nothing else was filed, and the plaintiff received a default judgment. Now they are probably pending one of the richest inmates that they're incarcerated with, possibly after this, because the person who filed the lawsuit is incarcerated. I'm not in this episode going to go over all the lawsuits. I will recap the lawsuits in another episode, so look out for that. Look out for the case file that we're going to attach to this so that everybody can kind of keep up with our coverage on it. But what we are going to do is we're going to read through the indictment and then we'll cover all the other stuff in other episodes. So just keep your eye out for those. However, I just do want to detail really quick, even just a few of the lawsuits that have been coming forward up to this indictment. One of the lawsuits was by a former cartel member, claiming that Sean Combs had basically interfered with his cartel business. Lots of wild claims have been made against him ever since Cassie Ventura filed that lawsuit and won a day later. He was accused of assaulting and drugging people that he was associated with in the early 90s. By November of 28th of last year, he had to step down as Revolt's chairman. He was the chairman of a company by the name of Revolt. Well, like I said, we'll recap all this stuff for anybody who doesn't know the ins and outs of this case. Because this case is it's probably going to be kind of a lengthy thing. So we'll put a good timeline out so that everybody can keep up with our coverage. Now, in December 6th, Sean Combs came out. He denied all the allegations in the lawsuits that came forward. He kind of denied the allegations with Cassie Ventura too, but then he settled. And then after he settled, that tape came out. That was the hotel footage that people saw all over the headlines where Cassie Ventura was in the hotel with Sean Combs, and he was quite disturbingly hunting her down in the hotel, trying to prevent her from leaving after it appeared that they had had a physical altercation together, allegedly. So then December 13th, by this point, people are really trying to distance from Sean Combs. Hulu scrapped Combs from plans that they had with him for a reality show. There was a music producer also that jumped in, Lil Rod, who made some very, very, very bombshell claims against him. A lot of people called that a ridiculous lawsuit. I don't think that is at all. And then March 25th of this year is when federal agents raided his LA and Miami homes. A lot of people saw that also play out in the headlines, and then Combs sold his stake in Revolt TV altogether. He started to sell off other things, and it seemed to be that he might be gearing up for what was ahead as far as a very expensive legal battle and things like that. So, March was a pretty busy year for him. A lot of allegations flying around, lawsuits flying around. And at that point, after the raid was done on his home, one of his associates, who's also a former basketball player, Brendan Paul, he was arrested with drugs on him. He was, with Sean Combs's family at the time. So Combs basically asked a judge to dismiss a sexual assault claim that was against him. This was filed back in December. And he said that they were false and hideous claims. This rhetoric just kind of continued on. He would try to pay people to drop these lawsuits behind the scenes, allegedly, and then on the front end of things was saying, I have nothing to do with this. So then there was a post to Combs' social media where he was basically speaking out on the whole matter. A lot of people saw that too. In our recap video, we'll make sure that we include all of that for anybody who missed any of the little details that unfolded as this kind of moved forward, and he knew that he was officially under federal investigation. By May, he had issued an apology for the hotel incident against Cassie Ventura. And in May, he was also removed from other things, including having to return his key to the city in New York City. Another former model sued him in May, or filed her lawsuit in May. Cassie Ventura started speaking out even more. So lots of things were happening to the lead up of this particular indictment. I'm going to put the indictment on the screen so everybody can kind of follow along. This will be done out of the Southern District of New York. He was arrested in Manhattan last night. There's some rumors flying around about the timing of his arrest, and we'll get into that eventually as well. So the indictment overview starts out by saying that for decades, Sean Combs, aka Puff Daddy, aka P. Diddy, aka Diddy, aka PD, aka Love. We're not going to say that every time it's mentioned in the indictment. says that the defendant abused, threatened, and coerced women and others around him to fulfill his desires. It says other desires, but we're going to try to make this as friendly as possible. To protect his reputation and conceal his conduct. To do so, Combs relied on the employees' resources and influence of the multifaceted business empire that he had led and controlled, creating a criminal enterprise whose members and associates engaged in and attempted to engage in, among other crimes, trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice. Sean Combs, the defendant, operated his business headquarters at various times in Manhattan and Los Angeles under a variety of United States-based corporate entities, including Bad Boy Entertainment, Combs Enterprises, and Combs Global. Collectively, the Combs business corporate entities in the Combs business included, among other things, record labels, a recording studio, an apparel line, an alcoholic spirits business. Everybody probably remembers Cyrock, a marketing agency, and a television network and a media company. At all times relevant to this indictment, Sean Combs, the defendant, engaged in a persistent and pervasive pattern of abuse towards women and other individuals. This abuse was at times verbal, emotional, physical, and sexual. As part of his pattern of abuse, Combs manipulated women to participate in highly orchestrated performances of sexual activity with male commercial workers. At times, Combs and others, acting at his discretion, made arrangements for women and commercial workers to fly to Combs's locations. Combs ensured participation from the women by, among other things, obtaining and distributing narcotics to them, controlling their careers, leveraging his financial support, and threatening to cut off the same and using intimidation and violence. Sean Combs was recurrent and widely known on numerous occasions from at least in or about 2009 and continuing for years. Combs assaulted women by, among other things, striking, punching, dragging, throwing objects at, and kicking them. These assaults were at times witnessed by others, included one instance at a Los Angeles hotel in or about March 16th, which was captured on video and later publicly reported, where Combs kicked, dragged, and threw a vase at a woman as she was attempting to leave. When a member of the hotel security staff intervened, Combs attempted to bribe the staff member to ensure silence. So those are the parts that you didn't see in the media that was not on the tape, was him then trying to make sure that nobody told anybody about this. Sean Combs used the Combs business, including certain employees, to carry out, facilitate, and cover up his abuse and commercial criminal behavior. Those employees, including security staff, household staff, personal assistants, and high-ranking supervisors and other close associates, acted as Combs's intermediaries, and their conduct was facilitated and assisted by Combs's control of the Combs business. So that kind of covers the overview of what they're alleging in all of this. A lot of this right here is repeated topics, so I'm going to skim by this really quickly. Let me go down to here. Sorry about the little wait here. I forgot to highlight the parts that we were going to actually go over. A lot of these lawsuits, or indictments too, they have to kind of put an overview, and then a lot of things just get restated throughout the document. So we're going to skim over to the things that have not been stated. All right, so this is more about him just using the business to employ people who would then threaten, intimidate, and all of that. Let's go right down here. In arranging, so we'll start at the top of this one. Combs and other members and associates of the Combs enterprise wielded the power of prestige of Combs's role at the Combs business to intimidate, threaten, and lure victims into Combs's orbit, often under the pretense of a romantic relationship. Combs then used force, threats of force, and coercion to cause victims to engage in extended acts with male commercial sex workers that Combs referred to as, among other things, freak-offs. Freak-offs were elaborate and produced sex performances that Combs arranged, directed, and would, we'll say, pleasure himself during, and often electronically recorded. In arranging these freak-offs, Combs, with the assistance of members and associates of the Combs enterprise, transported and caused to be transported commercial sex workers across state lines and internationally. The freak-offs occurred regularly, sometimes lasted multiple days, and often involved multiple sex workers. During the freak-offs, Combs distributed a variety of controlled substances to victims, in part to keep the victims obedient and compliant. Sometimes unbeknownst to the victims, Combs kept videos he filmed of victims engaging in these acts with commercial sex workers. After the freak-offs, Combs and the victims typically received IV fluids to recover from the physical exertion and drug use. How nice of him. Members and associates of the Combs enterprise, including high-ranking supervisors, security staff, household staff, personal assistants, and other Combs business employees. They facilitated the freak-offs, among other things, booking hotels for the freak-offs, stocking the hotel rooms in advance with freak-off supplies. Very interesting. Including controlled substances, baby oil, lubricant, extra linens, and lighting. Cleaning the hotel rooms after the freak-offs to try and mitigate room damage, arranging for travel for victims, commercial sex workers, and Combs to and from the freak-offs. I mean, it's really not all that surprising. You know, formerly I worked for high-profile clients, and these are not surprising allegations or anything. What is duly shocking is the fact that they're able to get away with doing it to minors and doing it by force and things like that, as long as they do. And also the fact that we're just shocked that he actually was brought in. We shouldn't be shocked, but we are. So in or about March 2024, during the searches of Combs' residences in Miami, Florida, and Los Angeles, California, law enforcement seized various freak-off supplies, including narcotics and more than 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant. Combs subjected victims to physical, emotional, and verbal abuse to cause the victims to engage in the freak-offs. Combs maintained control over his victims through, and among other things, physical violence, promises of career opportunities, granting and threatening to withhold financial support, and by other coercive means, including tracking their whereabouts, dictating the victim's appearance, monitoring their medical records, controlling their housing, and supplying them with controlled substances. During and separate from the freak-offs, Combs, among other things, hit, kicked, threw objects at, and dragged victims at times by their hair. So it's going over the job security of these victims and how that was used against them to keep them compliant and participating in this scheme, basically. This is like a mixture of, Epstein and R. Kelly, basically. You're going to see a lot of high-profile names floated around in this. This is going to be, I think, a little bit more bombshell than R. Kelly, and with a lot of the tactics used by Epstein. So let's go down here. This speaks more to just the control over the victims, and it's a lot of restating of the facts that we've already just read. says that when employees witness to his abuse or other threats, others threatened Combs's authority or reputation, Combs and members and associates of the enterprise engaged in acts of violence, threats of financial and reputational harm, and verbal abuse. These acts of violence included kidnapping and arson. In addition, on multiple occasions, Combs threw both objects and people. He threw people, as well as hit, dragged, choked, and shoved others. He threw objects and people, is exactly what the document says. Just a stunning individual. When Combs's authority or reputation was threatened by the possibility of negative publicity or legal or law enforcement action against him, including in or about late 2023, following public allegations of Combs's crimes, Combs and members and associates of the enterprise pressured victims and witnesses, including through attempted bribery, to stay silent and not report what they experienced or knew to law enforcement. On phone calls, he's making phone calls to bribe people when you know you're being federally investigated. Well, now we can also throw Donna Adelson vibes in there too. My goodness. So on phone calls, Combs and other members and associates of the enterprise, among other things, provided these victims and witnesses with a false narrative of events in an effort to conceal Combs's crimes. Sorry, I'm having a problem with my voice today. Combs caused these calls to be recorded on or at least 2 occasions. Wow. I'm going to read that again. On phone calls, Combs and other members and associates of the enterprise, among other things, provided these victims and witnesses with a false narrative of events. So he called these people up and he is trying to give them a false narrative of what he wants them, if kind of like, if you're going to talk, this is what you should say. Or a narrative of, if you're being told it's this, it's not. They could have said you were a willing participant of this. You're just going to make yourself publicly look foolish. All this is going to go away. There's a lot that you could do there. Sorry, my voice is so bad and my allergies are even worse. So from at least in or about 2008 through on or about the date of the filing of this indictment, the Southern District of New York and elsewhere, Sean Combs and others, known and unknown, being persons employed by and associated with the Combs enterprise, described in paragraphs 6 through 12 of this indictment, an enterprise engaged in and the activities of which affected interstate and foreign commerce, knowingly combined, conspired, confederated, and agreed together with each other to violate the racketeering laws of the United States. And the racketeering is really going to be the heart of the matter in this whole case. What was done, how it was done, how they were able to keep people quiet. Everybody keeps asking, why so long? Why so long? You're going to find out. You are going to find out. Just like with Epstein, you're going to find out why this took so long. And you may not like the answer, but you are all going to find out why this took so long. And unfortunately, justice is slow, but when you have money on your side, when you have the ability to coerce and intimidate people who do have the information that law enforcement would need, this stuff can go on for a really long time. Now, so let's go on with this racketeering statement here. Combs enterprise described in paragraph 6 through 12 of this indictment, an enterprise engaged in and the activities of which affected the interstate and foreign commerce and all that we just mentioned. Multiple acts involving kidnapping, chargeable under the following provision of state law, California Penal Code. It mentions the penal codes for the kidnapping. multiple acts involving arson also in California, and that was against Kid Cudi. So Kid Cudi, Kid Cudi, Kid Cudi, Kid Cudi. Yeah, that's right. I got to get it right here. Um, multiple acts indictable under Title 18, which is related to witness tampering, victim tampering, or tampering of like an informant. Multiple acts under Title 18 is mentioned multiple times here. So there's one related to forced labor, one related to trafficking, one related to uh, transportation, like transporting people for these activities. So, multiple offenses involving the possession with intent to distribute or distribution of narcotics and controlled substances, including cocaine, oxycodone. Let's see, we've got a form of methamphetamine in here. Just looking through the other drugs that it mentions in here: acid, ketamine. We got the whole bathroom closet in here. So the defendant agreed that a conspirator would commit at least 2 acts of racketeering activity in the conduct of the affairs of Combs Enterprises. So then it goes on to state that there is a notice of a special sentencing factor. So let's read that factor. From at least in or about 2009 up to and including in or about 2018 in the Southern District of New York and elsewhere, as part of his agreement to conduct and participate in the conduct of the affairs of the Combs Enterprise through a pattern of racketeering activity, Sean Combs agreed to, in and affecting interstate and foreign commerce, knowingly recruit, entice, harbor, transport, provide, obtain, advertise, maintain, patronize, and solicit by any means a person knowing it and in reckless disregard of the fact that the means of force, threats of force, fraud, and coercion, as described in Title 18, and any combination of such means would be used to cause the person to engage in commercial acts in violation with Title 18. Commercial sex acts is actually what it says. So it goes on to talk more about the fraud, the harboring, the kidnapping. I don't want to repeat too much of that for you all. We're also going to link on our timeline this document so everybody can go and look at it themselves. If any of the above described forfeitable property as a result of any act or omission of the defendant, so cannot be located upon exercise of due diligence, has been transferred to or sold, has been substantially diminished in value. It is the intent of the United States, pursuant to Title 18, to seek forfeiture of any other property of the defendant up to the value of the above forfeitable property. So they are coming in with some bombshell stuff here. They want any and all property, real and personal, constituting or derived from proceeds obtained directly or indirectly as a result of said offense, and any and all property, real or personal, that was used or intended to be used to commit or facilitate the commission of said offense. So if he had any deals with anyone, received money, or had any kind of operation going on where these parties were resulting in him benefiting financially, which guaranteed, any money that came from that, any money that he used and spent on goods or any kind of property, because of that, they're seeking that. They're also seeking anything that was bought solely to carry out these endeavors. In the beginning, people talked about, oh, he has this property, but he's really never there. Well, those may be properties they're looking at to see if they can tie all this together, seize those properties as being part of the overall conspiracy. And when I say, I mean overall offense, really. There is a conspiracy of coercion and things like that, but for the overall offense that he's being accused of racketeering, and racketeering by means of human trafficking and drug trafficking, if those things, you know, there is a conspiracy there, but we're talking more about the racketeering. So the racketeering is going to be the heart of the matter, and all these other little things are going to be fed into the overall racketeering charges, because it's all enmeshed. It all kind of flows, flows through each other. Um, let's go down here real quick and make sure we didn't miss anything. I think that's the overall document here. We're going to put that up on our website. We'll put it up on Patreon. We'll have a case file with a timeline of all the lawsuits and what happens with this indictment moving forward and how he's going to defend himself. He has already hired exactly who we all thought he would. Very, very much in connection to the Keith Raniere camp. And for anybody who doesn't know about that case, maybe we'll talk about that a little bit more. Go check out, lots of people have good information out there. You just have to be careful. Some people consider that Keith Raniere should not be in prison for doing very similar things, but he's exactly where he belongs. So lots of people have really good content out there about him too. Many people know about that case because a lot of celebrities were involved. It took place in New York as well, and had connections to other places. They were running even more of a conspiracy. Anyhow, he is going to fight these charges. Absolutely. I have no doubt he's going to fight these charges. He is likely hopeful that he can squirm out of this some way, somehow, and I'm sure a defense attorney is happy to tell him, yes, we can, and yes, we will, for the right amount of money, until they don't. Anyhow, we will be following this. We will put an episode out for the documents that come out moving forward, and just the overall information about how he's going to plan to fight this case, who's coming forward. The most important thing to remember right now, and I will attach the press conference to the end of this, the most important thing to remember right now is that more information is always needed, no matter what they have, no matter what they don't have. Just because law enforcement asks for more information doesn't mean they don't have enough to charge. It just means let's get it all in there and ensure that we get an appropriate sentence for the totality of the crimes. So just like when you have a predator who's brought in for having been caught in illegal behavior towards one child, well, if you can get other children to come forward who have maybe experienced the same thing, or other victims in general, even if it wasn't a child, you can just get that all in front of a judge and kind of let them know this person is exhibiting this repeat behavior. You can't catch and appropriately sentence repeat behavior if you don't have all the totality of information. Sometimes people get a heavy sentence just based on what they have, but not always. So, for those who do have more information, he is now in custody. You should really, really consider going and speaking to law enforcement about what you might know, what you might have witnessed or experienced. There are lots of people who came in contact with this operation. So with that, I think we're going to be done. We have more reporting to get out today, so I hope everybody has a good day. We'll attach the press conference at the end of this here. I hope you enjoy listening to that as well. And these are really, really important crimes in order for the public to know about. That's why we're covering this. We don't cover a lot of headline type news or headline type cases because we feel they already have enough attention. We like to cover the cases that don't get enough attention. But this one's important to get out because you could have a missing teen who has a family life that they really don't like or appreciate. They leave home. They're trying to make it out there on their own. They come in contact with somebody who is associated to an operation like this. It doesn't have to be Sean Combs. It doesn't have to be Keith Raniere. It doesn't have to be Epstein. It doesn't have to be any of these big name people. These operations are all over the country, the world. Anyone could come in contact with this, be needing a little bit of help. They don't put this forward in the beginning as you're going to be given drugs to be a sex worker. That's not how it's put forward to people. It's, we're going to teach you how to be a massage therapist, or we're going to teach you this skill, or we're going to teach you that skill, or we're going to get you into the music business, or the list goes on. And those promises are made, and they're believed by people who are in a situation where they really need to believe that life is about to take a turn for the better. So this is a very important story, and we just want to remind people why it's important, because anyone could come in contact with this, given a circumstantial situation where maybe you are in need of some help. And unfortunately, a lot of people come in contact with the wrong help. So keep that in mind. And when you do see, struggling teens that are trying to make it, try to help them out in the most appropriate way possible, and lead them toward resources that truly do want to help them get on their feet and make an appropriate life for themselves, and not someone who's only interested in selfish motivations and wanting to get them involved in something that could be traumatic, detrimental, or even come down with criminal charges for themselves. There are so many people who have been victims of trafficking who have criminal charges because of it. Anyway, so, all right, we're out for now. I'll be back with another episode.
Morning, everyone. My name is Damian Williams, and I'm the U.S. Attorney here in the Southern District of New York. Today I'm announcing the unsealing of a 3-count indictment, charging Sean Combs with racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, interstate transportation for prostitution. The indictment alleges that between at least 2008 and the present, Combs abused, threatened, and coerced victims to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. As alleged in the indictment, to carry out this conduct, Sean Combs led and participated in a racketeering conspiracy that used the business empire he controlled to carry out criminal activity, including sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and the obstruction of justice. Let me say a little bit more about the charges. The indictment alleges that Combs abused and exploited women and other people for years, and in a variety of ways. As alleged, Combs used force, threats of force, and coercion to cause victims to engage in extended sexual performances with male commercial sex workers, some of whom he transported or caused to be transported over state lines. Combs allegedly planned and controlled the sex performances, which he called freak-offs, and he often electronically recorded them. The freak-offs sometimes lasted days at a time, involved multiple commercial sex workers, and often involved a variety of narcotics such as ketamine, ecstasy, and GHB, which Combs distributed to the victims to keep them obedient and compliant. As alleged, when Combs didn't get his way, he was violent, and he subjected victims to physical, emotional, and verbal abuse so that they would participate in the freak-offs, and that Combs hit, kicked, threw objects at, and dragged victims, at times by their hair. On one occasion in March of 2016, that conduct was captured on video and later reported in the media. Specifically, Combs kicked, dragged, and threw a vase at a victim in a Los Angeles hotel when the victim was attempting to flee. As alleged, these assaults often resulted in injuries to the victims, which took days or weeks to heal. In addition to the violence, the indictment alleges that Combs threatened and coerced victims to get them to participate in the freak-offs. He used the embarrassing and sensitive recordings he made of the freak-offs as collateral against the victims. And the indictment alleges that he maintained control over the victims in several ways, including by giving them drugs, by giving and threatening to take away financial support or housing, by promising them career opportunities, by monitoring their whereabouts, and even by dictating their physical appearance. Because of all of this, the indictment alleges that the victims did not believe they could refuse Combs without risking their security or facing more abuse. The indictment also alleges other acts of violence undertaken by Combs and others, including violence against witnesses to his abuse, kidnapping, and arson. The indictment alleges that on more than one occasion, Combs carried or brandished firearms to intimidate and threaten victims and witnesses. Now, Combs did not do this all on his own. As I mentioned, Combs has been charged with RICO conspiracy. He used his business and employees of that business and other close associates to get his way. Those individuals allegedly included high-ranking supervisors in the business, personal assistants, security staff, and household staff. The indictment alleges that those individuals facilitated the freak-offs. They booked the hotel rooms and stocked them with the supplies, including drugs, baby oil, personal lubricant, extra linens, and lighting. When the hotel rooms got damaged, they helped clean it up. They arranged for victims and commercial sex workers to travel for the freak-offs, and they delivered large quantities of cash to Combs to pay for the commercial sex workers. The indictment also alleges that they helped Combs cover up his crimes. During the March 2016 incident at the LA hotel that I mentioned earlier, a member of the hotel security staff intervened, and Combs attempted to bribe the staff member with a stack of cash to make sure that what happened was kept quiet. And as the indictment alleges, in late 2023, after public allegations were made about Combs' crimes, he and others pressured witnesses and victims to stay silent, including by making phone calls to witnesses and victims and giving them a false narrative of what they had experienced. And as alleged, Combs used others to help conceal his abuse by monitoring and preventing victims from leaving a location in order to hide their injuries, or by locating and contacting a victim who had attempted to flee. As part of this investigation, in March of this year, special agents from HSI executed search warrants at Combs' residences in Miami and Los Angeles. They also executed a warrant for Combs' electronic devices. During those searches, agents seized evidence of the crimes charged in this indictment. They seized firearms and ammunition, including 3 defaced AR-15s and a large capacity drum magazine. They also seized evidence of the freak-offs, electronic devices that contained images and videos of the freak-offs with multiple victims. And they seized cases and cases of the kinds of personal lubricant and baby oil that Combs' staff allegedly used to stock hotel rooms for the freak-offs, more than 1,000 bottles altogether. Here are some of the items that we recovered during the searches. As you can see here, this is a drum magazine, large capacity, and it contains, I believe, 59 rounds. I mentioned as well that we recovered 3 AR-15s. This is a close-up shot of one of the AR-15s, and you can see right here the serial number has been thoroughly defaced. Another picture of more ammunition and parts of 2 AR-15s right there. Now, I want to be clear about 2 things. First, this office is determined to investigate and prosecute anyone who engages in sex trafficking, no matter how powerful or wealthy or famous you may be. No one should doubt our commitment on that. A year ago, Sean Combs stood in Times Square and was handed a key to New York City. Today, he's been indicted and will face justice in the Southern District of New York. Second, we are not done. This investigation is ongoing, and I encourage anyone with information about this case to come forward and to do it quickly. Anyone with information can call 877-4-HSI-TIP. I want to express my deep appreciation for the victims and witnesses who have used their voices and helped bring this criminal conduct to light. We would not be here without them. I also want to thank the dedicated case agents on the HSI Trafficking in Person Squad in New York. They have been with us since day one and have worked tirelessly on this investigation. They will continue to be invaluable partners to us. I also want to thank the incredible agents and analysts from SCNY who have also provided tremendous assistance on this case. I'm deeply grateful for their continued work. And finally, I want to thank the outstanding career prosecutors from SCNY who are handling this case. Meredith Foster, Emily Johnson, Chrissy Slavic, Madison Smizer, and Mitzi Steiner, and their supervisors, Jamie Backleiter and Jacqueline Kelly. They are members of the Civil Rights Unit in our criminal division. We created the Civil Rights Unit when I became U.S. Attorney. I'm deeply proud of their work on this and so many other cases. I'll now take some questions.
Eric Katursky, ABC.